Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the NHS Sustainability Agenda 2023. We have an amazing lineup of panelists today, and we're going to have to jump pretty much straight into this. I'm going to give it about a minute or so for people to start jumping into the room. We have a lot of people signed up today, so I'm really excited that everyone is interested in learning from our panel. We've probably had record-breaking numbers of sign-ups to this, and Nathan has just mentioned that's testament to the gravitas that we've managed to pull in from the panelists that we have today. So really excited to jump straight in. So we'll let people come through, but I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction. Sustainability Partnerships, myself and Nathan run, and we've been doing a lot of webinars over the last 2 years. Every year we start off with the Sustainability Agenda, and we give some thought leaders from the NHS the opportunity to tell everyone what their agenda is for the year ahead in terms of sustainability, both economically and ecologically. We have a really impressive panel today. We've got Janet Smith, who's the Joint Head of Sustainability at the Royal Wolverhampton Trust and Walsall Healthcare. We also have Fanny Burrows, who's the Net Zero Research and Innovation Technical Lead at NHS England. We've got Andrew Bradley, who's Sustainability Travel Lead in Net Zero Travel and Transport at NHS England. We've got Philip Shelley, who's joining us again for Senior and Operational Manager at the NHS and the Chair of the NHS Food Review. And we've got Paul Chivers, Head of PPE Innovation and Sustainability in the NHS Supply Chain. I have just had a notification that the chat function has been disabled for some reason, so let me see if I'm able to re-enable this. I'm going to pass straight over to you, Janet. Janet's going to share her screen. She's going to give us a bit of a presentation. If anyone has any questions, if you have anything that you'd like to just message to each other, let me see if I can get this messaging back up and running in the meantime. And please feel free to have conversations. We are going to have a Q&A at the end. It's going to be very, very short timing. So I'm going to see if I can pick out the most pertinent questions. Panelists, please feel free to type your answers if anyone is asking a question specifically to you. And Janet, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, go through your presentation while I try and get this chat fixed. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Janet Smith. I hope you can hear me and you can see my presentation. So I'm Janet Smith, Joint Head of Sustainability for Royal Wolverhampton NHS Trust and also Healthcare NHS Trust. What I'm going to share with you this morning is about greening RWT services, the successes that we have gained, and also the challenges. What I will be doing is basically speed talking through the first three slides. These are just background information. So let me share that with you. The Royal Wolverhampton NHS Trust has a green plan, current green plan, which we started implementing in July 2021, and it goes straight to 2025. And as everyone knows, the target is to achieve net zero by 2040. We have an interim target of 25% reduction in 2025. Don't ask me where that came from. We thought 25 in 25 sounded good, so that's where it came from. Okay, next one is we have the adaptation plan. As everyone knows, we have been experiencing quite high temperatures in our summers, and it is actually set to continue. So the trust has put together an adaptation plan which sets out mitigation and adaptation actions to mitigate and adapt our current estates and services for current and future impact of climate change. What you might ask, actually, what's our carbon footprint? The trust has done its carbon footprinting exercise, and these are, as you can see, these are the source of our carbon footprint. The biggest contributor is supply chain, which others might actually say not actually a surprise. Second one is the gas consumption. Third is capital spend. And fourth is pharmaceuticals. The total carbon footprint of the trust is just under 64,000 tons of CO2. What have we done so far? We are decarbonizing our estates and EFM services, greening our hospital services. We're implementing sustainable procurement, transport and travel, and also waste management. From all of that initiatives, we have so far, as of June 2022, we have reduced our carbon footprint by 9%. So what are we doing, which is unique to the trust, is that we have pulled together a carbon reduction crib sheet, which we provide our departments to just start off the conversation about how they can actually, or how we can, as a team, reduce their carbon footprint at the department level. We have the Sustainability Impact Assessment tool, which is now incorporated in our business case process, and also investment decisions and procurement decisions. We use that one. We've got our sustainability initiatives tracker, which tracks all the initiatives, the cost improvement that has been realized, the benefits, and at the same time, more importantly, the carbon reduction. The fourth one is the carbon footprint tracking dashboard, which we actually then managed to track our baseline, which is 2021, 2020-21, and then the year on year, how we are reducing it, and also what comes in additional to the baseline. Challenges. Still, gaining staff support is still a challenge. We are still in the process of embedding low carbon approaches in our trust processes and services. Funding is always a problem. It's about balancing the cost improvement program with investment on the greening the trust infrastructure systems and processes to reduce carbon footprint, at the same realize CIP in the future. There is, of course, the cost of new technologies to deliver net zero, particularly in estates where the introduction, of course, of heat pumps and everything is putting in more cost into the, what I would say, capital projects that would have before would cost maybe $1 million, now would cost about $2 million. Those kind of challenge. And of course, we have the climate impact challenge on trust estates and services, both clinical and non-clinical. We know that with our old buildings, it's difficult to keep them from overheating. In the last year, one of my trusts actually had 34 overheating incidents. So that's one area. It's the cost of adaptation and the cost of the mitigation as well. And then the other thing is, of course, maybe not everyone is talking about this, but it's upskilling staff to actually new technology, ensuring that they are able to, like EFM services, are we upskilling our staff to actually maintain the new technologies that we're putting in, like the new heat pumps, all those kind of things? Do they have the skills currently to actually maintain those? So those are the challenges that we have, but we are working as a team, and we're hoping that we will still achieve the trajectory of carbon reduction that we have set ourselves. And that's my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm open to questions later. Thank you.
Janet, so thank you so much for opening up and giving us that really nice, concise overview of what you've been up to. I think that estates is something that we've spoken about quite a lot over the last couple of years, and it's absolutely amazing to see the types of cutting-edge technology that people are putting into buildings, creating smart buildings, looking at IoT, and I think that brings us really, really happily into introducing Fanny Burrows, who's the Net Zero Research and Innovation Technical Lead. So please, could you have any questions? There are a couple there for you in the Q&A, Janet. You are feel free to type your answers there, because I feel that we won't have a lot of time for Q&A. So keep adding your questions into that Q&A function. Our panelists are then able to type their answers instead of us having to say them verbally and take up more time. But if you want to please introduce yourself, Fanny, and just tell us what you're up to in your presentation today. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Georgia. Thank you very much for having me. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Fanny Burrows. I'm the Net Zero Research and Innovation Technical Lead at NHS England. And I actually sit in the Innovation Research and Life Sciences group within NHS England that hosts the Accelerated Access Collaborative. What I wanted to do first is give you a very brief overview of what the Accelerated Access Collaborative, and we refer to it as the AAC. But it's a really unique group of NHS bodies, government bodies, industry, sort of patient voices integrated in that group to bring really strong stakeholder engagement and discuss how we can support the adoption of innovation in the NHS. And you can see some of this organization within the AAC and some of the sort of key board members that we've got. So really strong sort of stakeholder groups. And what the AAC is doing is really sort of supporting the adoption of groundbreaking innovation within the NHS to sort of transform care and make sure that those innovations can access the patients as quickly and as efficiently as we can. Really focusing on cost-effective, clinically effective innovations. And when we talk about innovations, what do we really mean? DAC is really focusing on medicines, medtech, in vitro diagnostics, but also digital products, so quite a broad range of different innovations. And what I wanted to do here is very briefly sort of give you an idea of what the key 5 priorities are for the AAC in sort of next couple of years. There's an emphasis on research of sort of making sure that we can scale research within the NHS, sort of build clinical evidence, but also increase the diversity of research within the NHS. Another one is around frontline innovation and how we can support promote the workforce to sort of develop and drive innovation to the front line. Another priority is around delivering sort of commercial deals at scale to the NHS, especially for NICE approved product. There's a bit on trying to find and articulate the actual needs, the problems that the NHS is having, and how we can articulate, for example, and signal those needs to researchers and funders so they're aware of what the NHS needs, and we can really sort of drive new innovations in those particular places where we need those solutions. And the last part is supporting promising innovation, especially working of NICE approved innovation, and how we can sort of bring that to the system. So those are the key 5 priorities. But on the top here, you can see that all of the work has got sort of a cross function going through. All the work is informed by patient, and patient is really strong voice across everything we do. But as you see, there's an emphasis around health inequalities, around the key priority that the NHS has, but also how we can support through all of our priority, embedded in all our priority, how we can support the NHS to achieve the net zero targets. And this is a work that we are embedding across all of our priorities within the AAC. So the AAC is committed to turn net zero, supporting the delivering a net zero NHS. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, by introducing really strong criteria within everything we do. So sustainability is embedded and considered in everything we do, but also working really closely with the greener NHS to drive greener practices and to drive greener research and innovation. So some of the area of focus that we're having is we know what the sustainable procurement looks like and some of the milestones that are coming up. And we're trying to sort of support innovators, especially getting ready for those big milestones coming up, and how we can support them quite early on to meet those milestones. We're trying to develop some form of matrix or assessment framework on seeing how we can evaluate innovations and the potential in carbon savings, for example, of a potential new product going to the NHS or in the potential of a new innovation to transform the care pathway and bringing the emissions down. And then we're trying to understand the gaps and the demand on more sustainable research and innovation, finding the evidence, trying to really sort of understand where new interventions and new products would be needed, and then we can signal those gaps to the research and innovation partners that we work with. And throughout all this work, we work very, very closely with all of our AAC partners and with the AHSN to help innovators and innovations to align to the Net Zero NHS. And this is a brief overview of how the AAC has contributed to Net Zero. There's been a lot of case studies and a lot of press around the use of drones to sort of take treatments to the patients more efficiently. Sustainability has been fitted in some of our AAC programs, like the Clinical Entrepreneur Program. There is a workforce development program. And then there's been the SBRI healthcare competitions. And the SBRI is a small business research initiative healthcare program supported by the AAC that's fitted to specific funding competition on Net Zero. And here is just a brief overview of what's happened in the last kind of couple of years. We had an SBRI healthcare competition that awarded about £1 million to 10 innovations that aligned to the Net Zero targets. And then a further 5 million has been recently allocated for a proportion of these 10 projects to actually get further funding to continue to develop, evaluate, and build the evidence clinically, financially, but also environmentally of their innovations. And the 4 key areas that they focused on was around reducing the emissions associated to care miles, anything around reducing travel, any emissions related to surgical pathway, particularly the sort of carbon-intensive surgical pathways, something around the carbon nitrous oxide emissions, and finally anything that sort of supports low carbon decision making. And then in August last year, the program launched a new competition that sort of just awarded £1 million to a number of innovations, and again supporting innovations that sort of support a transition to net zero. And the focus was on, again, decarbonizing surgical pathways, a focus on waste, particularly in surgery and critical care, a focus on how do we turn to a more net zero personalized care, and again, some tools that could support the workforce in transitioning to net zero. So those were the sort of fitted area that the program has focused on and supporting innovation in that space. And these are just sort of some case studies of the innovations that were supported. We were really excited to sort of hear about them and continue to follow them. One was Revolution Zero, that is sort of trying to displace single-use medical textiles. So they're focusing on PPE, drape, sort of surgical gown, and how that can be reused, and also looking at more sustainable alternatives. APN is the drone company that is kind of trying to bring healthcare in a faster manner and in a greener manner directly to patients. And there's been some work in Northumbria to test the use of drones to bring this healthcare product to patients, but also some project around the Isle of Wight on how we can bring chemotherapy treatment to patients much more time efficiently. So that's been really, really interesting to follow. And more of a sort of pathway workflow type of approach was Open Medical that was supported as well, that kind of supports clinician in pre-operation, post-operation, making more sustainable decisions around alternatives, anesthetic gases, and working the workflow. So just my last couple of slides is what do we want to do next? We really have quite a strong ambition to embed net zero in everything we do in the AAC. Continuing to support innovation programs, and thinking about funding in that space, in the net zero space, and what we can do there to support the NHS net zero ambition and kind of try to fill the gaps. We want to build strong sustainability criteria and embed that as part of our process, so that becomes a sort of critically assessed factor in all of our programs. We want to embed some sort of matrix so we can gather data, whether that's from an horizon scanning perspective or actually the way we want to start to evaluate some of our product and innovation, how we support them, so we can have an idea of, what performance these innovations could have from an environmental perspective. And finally, we really want to engage with our partners in the research and innovation sector to sort of influence more greener innovations and start to work on how we can sort of support that sector, broadly speaking, and stimulate greener innovations. So that's it. We really want to continue building strong collaborations, work with our partners to make sure that we align together on how we can progress that net zero agenda. We want to continue stimulating innovation in that space. More and more greener innovations are needed. Where do we need them? And signaling that to the sector. And starting to really figure out where are the gaps that we don't really know yet, or that we really need to address to start to sort of reduce our emissions and the help that innovations can do on that front. So that's it for me. Thank you very much. And I'd be happy to take any questions at the end of the webinar. Thank you very much, Georgia.
No, thanks so much for sharing everything there. And I think that what's so exciting to see is sort of 2 years ago when I first did our an event like this where we did the sustainability agenda, it felt like sustainability was sort of an afterthought still, and was sort of siloed away in teams that you would have people that I'm just in charge of sustainability. But now seeing for over the last 2 years the change in mindset and how it's being completely embedded in absolutely everything, every decision that's being made, especially as both of our speakers have both mentioned in operating theatres. Also really cool to see that you mentioned both Rev Zero and Open Medical, who have been partners with sustainability partnerships as well. So amazing to see like how that's actually gone sort of full circle and how you're working with those guys, both really amazing companies. I'm going to jump straight over to you, Andrew, and allow you to go through your presentation as well. There are a lot of questions being asked in the Q&A. If panelists do have anything that you'd like to say to any, please just go through and just type your answers on there. There's a lot about things like estates and things, so it'd be great if anyone could field any of those in the meantime. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Andrew Bradley. I'm the Sustainable Travel Lead for the Net Zero Travel and Transport team within NHS England, a team that was formed only in January of last year, and I joined in April of last year. And we are trying to knock carbon out of the travel and transport of the NHS, both in terms of the fleet, but also in terms of the way that people travel to our NHS settings and patients and visitors, as well as staff, but also the way that people travel for NHS business. So without further ado, you should all be, or not you should all be, but you may be familiar with these sort of slides here that come from our Delivering a Net Zero NHS that was delivered in 2020. And I circled the things that we as a Net Zero Travel and Transport team are concerned about on the left-hand side. For my part, I'm principally interested, as I said, on staff commuting and on patient and visitor travel, as well as on business travel. And you can see how that stacks up in carbon terms on the right-hand side, and it equates to about 15% of the total NHS carbon emissions. Here's some of the things that we've been doing over the last year or two. I won't dwell on these too much. There's Fanny referred to the drone trials. We've also been looking at trials with ambulances, hydrogen in London, and also electric in the West Midlands. And then there's some other examples from the front line where we've been working with logistics and freight and the use of cargo bikes here and there to transport small volumes of goods. It's softly, but we are making some inroads in this space, which is really positive, and particularly working with other stakeholders on e-bikes and the expansion of e-bikes, where a normal bicycle just won't really do the job because of terrain or what have you. So this might be fairly obvious to a lot of you. How do we want people to travel? How do we not want people to travel? Avoid or reduce journeys where possible, digital care, patient requested follow-ups, job planning, etc. Support staff and patients who could potentially walk or cycle, looking at travel surveys and personal travel plans and the infrastructure that goes with it. mapping high volume commuter and patient journeys and looking at where public transport or park and ride and safe cycling routes can be employed to help with that, and incentives for vehicle sharing. So if you need to use a vehicle, can we make it more attractive for you to share those vehicles? Easy, right? Not so much. What are the confounding factors? We've got obviously the pandemic. How could we forget about that? Shift patterns, emergency cover and response, the specialist roles and the hospitals that need to be catered for, and multi-site delivery. It's not as easy as that to get people out of their cars, and particularly 2, 3, 4 and 5 there make it difficult for people to transition to sustainable modes of travel sometimes. So I joined this team in April of last year and I went, oh my goodness, there's such a lot to do. How are we ever going to make some inroads to this? And what can we do to assist NHS trusts and staff who, yes, as you said, the fact that we've got sustainability teams is absolutely fantastic, but those people are still stretched over a massive agenda. And how can they be specialists in every single thing? How can we help with the travel and transport agenda specifically? So we set up a new network. This is the first sustainable travel network or transport network within the NHS. It's called Step Up a Gear, and it is a network that's been set up to identify initiatives that have come from the trusts or the ICSs themselves that we can share over a 2-year period with the rest of the NHS to say, if you make investments and decisions in these spaces, these are the outcomes that you might see, hopefully. And it's not all about best practice. Some of this actually is about saying, do you know what, we tried this and it didn't work. It wasn't effective, to avoid people making those same mistakes and wasting their time. So as you can see, geographically, we've got a good spread of trusts across the country who we are working with. Each of the participants listed here has come up with 2 or more initiatives that we're going to measure over the 2-year period and convert those measures into what the carbon savings and what the carbon impact is. But we're not just concerned with carbon savings, we're concerned with air quality around our NHS settings. And we're also concerned actually about trying to assist trusts with some of the thorny issues that they face around parking and the like. So how can we replicate some of these examples? The initiatives fall really into 4 broad themes. So public transport, active travel, cars and parking, and the use of technology. And some of them span a range of those. And we are, as I say, working closely to pull this work together to develop case studies that we will share within the 2 years, but also at the end of the 2 years, along with a whole load of data to show what works and what doesn't. My team is providing support to bring these participants together and to share that learning, but also in the monitoring and evaluation space so that trusts don't have to do that themselves. And here's just some examples of the sorts of themes that we are working on to pick up a couple of these. It's anything from enhanced provision of staff travelling actively. That could be a provision of hubs for people who are travelling actively. So changing facilities, shower facilities, decent, safe cycle parking and decent, safe cycle routes, not just within a hospital or an NHS site, but linking in with what the local authorities are doing beyond the perimeters of the NHS setting and their walking and cycling infrastructure plans. Also working on car clubs to replace grey fleet. So that's grey fleet is when people are using their own vehicles for business travel. If you've got a car club, you've got greater control of the emissions that are coming out of those vehicles, and you're using those vehicles more effectively. They're being used by more people throughout the span of the day. Some of them working actually with local authorities to use those vehicles for the general public at the end of the day, in the evenings and the weekend, when perhaps the NHS doesn't need them. So getting more bang for our buck out of those vehicles. So that's just to pick up two of those points, but I'm more than happy. I think that's the end of me. So thank you for listening, and more than happy to answer questions when the time comes. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew. Everyone is rattling through, and I do appreciate how quickly you are going through things. Again, there are a lot of questions. One was about the chat function. You guys are really, really chatty today, and we absolutely love it. Really appreciate that everyone is getting involved with the chat. People have asked if you're able to have the ability to save the chat. You should have the ability if you press the three dots next to sort of the emoji icon. If you can't, it was Timothy Malone that asked about it. If you really can't do it, what I might do is just download the entire chat and then add that as a download on the write-up on our blog. So you'll receive an email when everything's gone live, the video, and we might just have the entire transcript as a download as well for anyone who does want to catch up on any of those emails, because you guys are really, really good at sharing all of your LinkedIn accounts, all of your email addresses, and I don't want that not to be captured. So we'll definitely make sure that everyone gets all the details that have been shared one way or another. Okay, straight into you, Philip, if you don't mind.
No, absolutely. It's a real privilege to be part of today's webinar, and great, Andrew, to hear about transport, which is such a driver around sustainability and clinical with Fanny, and also hearing a trust perspective from Wolverhampton. So it's a great start. They always say I'm the foodie on the panel, okay? And I think it's always good to have a foodie, particularly as we're having a lunchtime session. And I hope that over the next few minutes, I can just share a few ambitions from the soft facilities management team at NHS England. And of course, food is very much a strong focus around sustainability within healthcare. The partnership working that is currently taking place certainly demonstrates a purposeful ambition. None of us can do it on our own, and that's great why we have this session where we can exchange chat and questions and discussions and try and pick the best of what's happening out there already. The NHS Food Review and National Food Standards for Healthcare certainly provide a fantastic opportunity to drive vital change. I just realized, let's see if I can go down. Here we go. Okay, so we're rolling out a national plan on a number of topics right now. Food waste is right up there. It was one of the recommendations from the Food Review. It's also a mandatory standard within the food standards. And we want to encompass, we want to monitor, we want to measure, and of course, we want to reduce. Currently, we've got 16 pilot sites. They're leading on a knowledge-based 4-week schedule. We've got fantastic support and advice from RAP, and we're using the Guardians of Grub template, which is being used effectively throughout hospitality. So we've shaped that specifically for healthcare and will no doubt be used in other public sector circles. We haven't got long today. Very, very happy to pick this conversation up because I know it's going to be of great interest to people. The plan is over the next 12 months is to roll that out across the NHS, and then through Eric in 2024 we will start to be asking for that information. So just we're already working around it, but there are some that will need to start from the beginning. If we're going to promote hospitals also to be beacons in the community, then we should be serving food of the highest quality and also in a consistent manner. So a large number of recipes and menus, they're being nutritionally and carbon analysed right now, and they will be loaded up on a platform to provide healthcare sites the options to follow that expertise. Not every site has got that ability to link to dietetics and to those people with knowledge. So it's down to us to provide that information to every site so everybody has got that same opportunity. Many of the trusts also have a strong digital application to support their patient ordering requirements. And after conversations with these providers, we've put together a matrix that I think helps trusts decide the procurement pathway. You know, we can't actually tell them which provider to use, but what we can do is provide you with the information and the evidence to think, well, actually, this is the best fit for me, whether I'm an acute setting, whether I'm mental health, or whether I'm community. If we're also to provide evidence and actions on improving sustainability and environment, then we need data collections to truly reflect our service models. There continues to be positive changes in ERIC, PAM and PLACE over the next 2 years. So ERIC is very much around that data collection. PAM is very much around the governance, around our premises assurance and how we can sort of shape the risk and governance going forward, and PLACE is that patient-led assessment. So it's often a bit of a one-stop shop in a day where you look at, you know, your wards and departments and try and understand where they're going individually. I think those three collections are something that we can really be proud of, but also helps us understand the model hospital point of view. So having this accessible platform as well for all NHS staff to continually learn and develop their skills is essential. So if we're going to capture expertise and drive exemplary practices, how are we going to educate our teams on food safety, on healthier and balanced menus, the carbon footprint of our services? This drives our knowledge-based decisions, and we can't do that without the evidence. It takes time to collect it, but I believe that we are getting there. Of course, the announcement this week to ban the use of single-use plastic is a step in the right direction. The conversations with suppliers, they need to be dynamic, they need to be resourceful. Find the right replacement, the right solution for you. And asking ourselves the right questions to continually challenge the next steps, that's a sign of ambition. Speak to trust colleagues, other healthcare organisations and experts to shape the future. The National Food Strategy from Henry Dimbleby highlighted the concern around our short-term thinking with food purchasing. The balance of our origin for food, it needs to be taken into consideration. However, many of our large suppliers in the public sector, they're already minimising their transporting, they're using effective collective farming, they're producing and freezing down products. Carbon counting is becoming more accessible, helping us to strengthen our knowledge and expertise. The balance of our menus is high on the list when browsing social media. Surely it's about quality and not quantity. All of us, whether we're in business or in our personal lives, actually want value for money. Understanding where our food comes from, including the labelling advice on allergies and our nutritional information. The recommendations from the food review identified a requirement for mandatory food standards in healthcare. These were launched in November 22, and we've already started to shape the strategic aims and practical procedures for catering teams. Having a sustainable workforce and system, it's essential if a service is going to be successful. Our current pressures in the NHS are immense, but I don't think there's any better time to ensure that our standards of care are held at the highest possible level. Leadership requires honesty. It needs to recognise the drive to get back to business as usual. But with workforce shortages, inflationary pressures, and our cost controls, it is a test in time. It's about knowing your teams, your services, and your strategy to have a collaborative approach for a sustainable future. You know, I hope today's session goes some way to form that view. Thank you very much.
Oh, amazing, Philip. More and more are just about collaboration. And I love what you mentioned about to speak to people within your trust and speak to other people in other trusts, because one of the main points of sustainability partnerships and everything we do here is that you guys do have a forum to have all of the amazing conversations that you've already had, ask all the questions that you do, and provide a platform to share, as you said, Andrew, not just success but failure. And the amazing things that you're doing as well. And I would love to learn a little bit more about how we can actually support you on sharing, the map that you showed earlier, and how sustainability partnerships can support with that a little bit more. I also love to, Philip, Guardians of Grub, a marketing person had to come up with that, right? Or did you guys come up with that internally? I do love that. That's a really good one. We're going to finish off with Paul now. Again, there's so many questions in the Q&A. If any panelists please just want to jump in, there's a couple there for you, Philip, from one of our esteemed colleagues, Alexis Percival, who we always love to hear from. And Paul, I think you need to share your other screen again. I think we're on your notes screen.
Is that the right one?
If you want to go full screen, we'll let you know. That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Georgia. Hi, everybody. Those that don't know me, Paul Chivers, Head up Innovation and Sustainability across PPE in the supply chain. We're going to cover a few things today, a bit of an introduction, a question which shows some ugly photos of me, but there we go. Some of the achievements we've done, a bit about what the future work is. Some of that will also go more widely into some things that Heidi Barnard, the Head of Sustainability across the supply chain, is also doing, and then also future work and challenges. As I say, not a great picture. Also, the thing on the left there, as you can see, that's what currently people are wearing. Single-use plastic aprons, single-use visors, single-use mask, and obviously on both photos there would be gloves. The column there that shows waste of 118 grams in total may not sound very much. There's about 2 million people work across health and social care. If every one of them put that on once a day, you generate 236 tons of waste. If they put it on once a day, a lot of people wear this stuff a lot. So what we've got on the right is, and going back to Fanny's point, that's a reusable type 2R mask, Revolution Zero, reusable apron, and also reusable eye protection with clip-in prescription lenses. The reusable eye protection lasts 2 years, the apron 100 washes, and the mask 40 washes. Obviously gloves are gloves, and we can't do a lot about those at the moment. The reason there's no waste against the reusable glasses, reusable type 2Rs, and the reusable apron is they are taken away by manufacturers and reprocessed at the end of it. Also makes it look as though I lost a bit of weight at the same time. So achievements, there's a number of things on there. We are a small team, myself and 2 colleagues, and so rather than go through all those, we'll pick out a few. Fourth one down, the reusable type 2R that we've just seen there. We have just finished piloting that at the Royal Devon in Exeter. That's being written up, and a number of masks have gone off to the test house just to confirm that after 40 real life experiences of washing, donning, doffing, in and out of the dispensers, etc., there has been no detrimental impact on them. We've got the glove MOOC based on the work Great Ormond Street did, where they achieved a 33% reduction about 4 years ago in inappropriate glove use. 33% reduction on the 6 to 7 billion gloves we use in healthcare and per year is a significant reduction. We're also working with an international eye protection company to make a product specific for health and care. It's very smooth, very sleek, very easy to clean, and looks like cycling glasses, and again can have clip-in prescription lenses. And then we've been out and about on the PPE events. We've taken 13 suppliers of PPE, from powered hoods, respirators, masks, eye protection, as well as ozone cabinets and UVC cabinets, and hypochlorous acid and microfiber cloths, to get feedback and engage with users about what's wrong with our current PPE, as well as alternative ways to clean it going forwards, and maybe break the love affair with the great old wet wipe. Here's a quick shot of 9 transparent face masks, which we've also delivered this year, that are all compliant and are available direct from manufacturers until they become available through the supply chain. So what are these things delivering then? So the MOOC, as I talked about, if we achieved a 30% reduction, now Great Ormond Street achieved 33% reduction pre-pandemic, and I would suggest more people are wearing gloves now than they ever were pre-pandemic. If you reduce inappropriate use, there's a £48 million saving in procurement, but there's also 10,000 tonnes of waste that's reduced and 54,000 tonnes of carbon reduced. And the one at the bottom, the glove dispenser, we've all seen the glove boxes. You pull a glove out, 3 or 4 hit the floor and they end up in the bin. We are working with a company and we're trying to drive other companies to get smarter dispensers where you pull one glove and you only get one glove. And we potentially believe we could reduce waste again by 10%, which again is another 3,000 tonnes of waste and another 18,000 tonnes of carbon reduction. Other potential benefits from reusable products. The pandemic preparedness stock is being obviously looked at again now, and it always sits in preparation for any pandemic coming. If you put 200 million single-use type 2R masks, so the blue fluid-resistant surgical masks, into that, you'll need 7,000 pallets to move them. You'll need 278 vehicles. And the cost per pallet of the pallets being stored in a warehouse is £3.6 million over that 2-year lifespan of those products. If you compare that to a reusable product, to get the same coverage, you'd need 868 pallets, only 35 vehicles, and therefore a much reduced saving over the space, cost, and the number of vehicles. So for one product, you'd save £8 million and you'd have 799 fewer vehicles on the road, and obviously all the emissions, etc., associated with that. And then if we go down to sort of replacing all those single-use things that I showed you in the earlier photo, visors, aprons, and type 2Rs, and I put 80% reduction of single use because there's always a case where people will say we need a single use for whatever reason. But if you look at the tons of plastic reduction, 4,000 in the type 2Rs, 3,000 in the aprons, the visors, and then combine that with also the glove reduction we looked at just now as well. And then the tons of carbon, and 11,500, as I say, type 2Rs, nearly 10,000 in aprons. P3 mask, for those that don't know what a P3 mask is, it is a reusable FFP3, i.e. the white cup that you normally see people wearing where they need a higher level of protection. We burn through millions of these each year. At the height of the pandemic, it was quite significant compared to what it is now. But if we can make a reusable FFP3 mask, we can then also reduce 260 tons of plastic and also 1,000 tons of carbon. Now going on to some of the wider things in terms of sustainability across supply chain. Obviously there's work being done to try and work with suppliers and work with them in terms of their carbon reduction plans and their social value model. So this is a quick slide to show the differences about what is what and when did they become enacted. So the social value model became part of all contracting back in April 2022, and that is future facing. It's about what they're doing for their local community. It's about ensuring from the tender stage that the companies we work with are contributing to benefit the area as well as the net zero. Their carbon reduction plans obviously come into force in April 2023, and that is historically. So we will deal with companies that have got a good track record, they are sustainable and they are doing good work, not just articulating what they may do in the future. This is some work again as the sustainability team across the supply chain have done. They looked at products back in 2019, 2020. What was their carbon footprint? They also then looked at products against 2021. And the expectation is to revisit this in May of this year, because when they did this and then they did a deep dive, as you can see here, gowns, type 2R masks, face shields, and a lot of the PPE, which is low intensity but high volume, has a significant impact in terms of carbon. And it significantly changed from 2019 to 2020, where a lot of them were 1 or 2%, and then many of the others are now up at 10%. So that's one of the reasons we are looking at more reusable and sustainable products to actually drive down the waste, drive down the carbon emissions, and also make cost savings. Other areas that we're looking at across supply chain, packaging. Packaging, even as you know, from all the stuff you get at home and everything that we come through the supply chain, is a massive problem. Those figures on the left there, the paper, plastic, those are the upper and lower bands that an average trust is paying to have its paper and plastic removed. So as it shows through the cogs on the right, one of the things is about understanding the products and their packaging journey. Now, we've spoken with Revolution Zero, we've spoken with Bolle, who are making the eye protection. These products, particularly if they're launderable, when launderable products come straight into service, they can go straight through the laundry. So they don't need to be in numerous plastic bags. They don't need to be in boxes wrapped in cellophane, etc. Similarly, the eye protection has a 2-year anti-scratch sort of warranty with them. So they don't need to be in plastic bags. We don't need information leaflets with every single one, because nobody ever reads an eye protection leaflet. Where's it come from? The more localized and the more sort of social value that you get, the less packaging, hopefully, as well. We then talk to customers. What are the packaging problems and products, and what can we do to help them with those? So what future work have we got in train? As I say, we could do with developing a P3 mask for health and care settings. Those two there, again, we are working with Revolution Zero and Hello Face, the transparent P3 mask, and also the non-transparent, much larger area of filtration and a much better breathability. We're collating the findings from the out and about events to share more widely so that manufacturers can address the feedback from all the attendees about what's wrong with our current PPE. A lot of it is, it's not made for the health and care settings. The powered hoods, a lot of the power packs are too heavy, they're too noisy, they're on a shoulder strap, which every time they bend to go near a patient, the heavy power pack swings, rips their apron and bashes into other equipments. We want to do the standardization for decontamination for P3 masks, eye protection, the type 2Rs through the laundry, as well as aprons through laundry. And we're also looking at things like ozone and UVC cabinets, so that when the eye protection has been worn, currently there is no cleaning standard in the specifications, but we want to be able to maybe put it through those cabinets so that it can be cleaned and reused by somebody the next day. I know Philip just mentioned about the food standards for healthcare. We are trying to get health standards for products, eye protection and P3 masks being prime examples. A lot of the PPE products we have been lifted, borrowed, adopted from heavy industry and construction. Therefore, they have requirements in them like withstanding a ball bearing at 11 miles an hour, but they certainly don't have a cleaning and a decontamination requirement in them. And we're trying to put that into place. We also are looking at laundry, so the blueprint for the EM 14065 and ISO 13485 is about compliant laundries more locally, so we don't do lots of miles up and down motorways taking to laundries, but we can work with the TSA and other local laundries to actually make sure they're compliant, and therefore all the launderable products we can get locally laundered. We're going to continue the innovation hubs, and we want to also investigate alternatives. We can reduce the number of gloves being inappropriately worn, but also is there an option about rather than just gloves from the Far East? I've spoken to somebody. The sap that comes out of dandelions can be used to make gloves, and that's being explored in some areas. Spray on gloves, put your hands in a booth, spray on some gloves, and then that they can come off later and be reprocessed. And also the potential of onshore glove production using smarter technology and less polluting than the current production lines that are in the Far East. And again, we want to explore other single-use products in health and care. We looked at anaesthetic masks. We're also looking at the medical boots. So if you fall over on a Friday night and hurt your ankle and they give you that medical boot, they're single-use predominantly. Now they're based on ski boot technology, and no ski boot I've ever worn is single-use. So there is a lot of scope. And similarly, who knows what the next pandemic may be. If it's something where a lot of theatres requirement is put on to bear, a lot of the products that are in theatres are single-use plastics. They come from far and wide. We should be able to locally manufacture and produce, and then align with the strategy launched in 2020 that we have more resilience and we reduce single-use plastics. As I say, the announcement of reduction in single-use plastics that came this week, potentially that could come from health settings as well in the future, and therefore it would be good to get ahead of the game. What are the challenges to doing this? Every product we use and put into a pilot has to go through an independent assessment to confirm it is regulatory compliant and that it meets the essential health and safety requirements as well. We also need to make sure we've got the good infrastructure to safely manage sustainable products. So if we've got reusable products, a mask can be used 40 times. We need to know that it's been through the laundry 39 times and then gets taken out after its 40th wash. Same with the aprons, and same with many other reusable products. So investment in things like RFID tagging would help with that. I think it would also reduce waste where linens are going out the door as well. If we put the sensors in the right place, a little bit like detectors on the front of a store where shoplifters set off an alarm, we could then flag where reusable products are in the waste and stop them going to the landfill or the incinerator. Obviously, we need to ensure about compliant laundries. Currently, we break the waste system. If we moved everything to overnight compliant to launderable products, we would break the laundry system. As I say, we want the logistics for on or near site, and also we need to agree decontamination and try and move away from the reliance on wet wipes. There's education and behavioural. I know people talked about it in some of the previous slides as well. People need to understand the reusable product, what regime has it been through to ensure it's safe and clean to reuse it. For 30 years now, we've been just doffing it, bin it, and it goes off to incinerator or landfill. We also need the support for the health and care specs, as I've talked about earlier. That we discussed it with regulators. It's finding the people to actually then start to draft these standards so that then the manufacturers can make products that meet those standards rather than meet standards in other industries. And then, as was mentioned earlier, that database that Andrew's talking about who's doing what where in terms of the transportation and things, we want something similar in terms of innovation and pilots and trials that people are doing to share awareness and reduce duplication of effort. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. And I think Georgia's going to go to questions.
Well, we've got only a few minutes left on the session, which is such a sad announcement to have to make, but I know that a few people have to go straight after this session. What we are going to do, as usual, is make sure that we have the entire recording of the session onto our blog. That also comes with a full write-up of the session and all of the slides from all of our presentations today. And what I'm also going to do, as I said earlier, is actually download the entire web chat and make sure that that's also downloadable for everyone on that blog post, because there's been some really interesting comments here. Everyone's having their own conversations with each other. Everyone's asking really great questions. And what it means is that if anyone's left their details, there's any questions here that you have specifically to our panelists, they can then go back and have conversations and just keep the entire conversation going, and be sharing insight with each other. And what I did need to do before we go is just give you a bit of an insight into what we're doing for the rest of the year. So if I can just share, and my panelists can maybe let me know if you can see my presentation. Yeah, great. Thanks for the thumbs up there. So just wanted to let you know a few things of what we're doing this year. Obviously, we don't have the time to go into what is some of the most great conversations that we've had so far, but we do have events every single month this year. Coming up just the first half of the year, in Feb, we're going to be talking about health tech. In March, we're going to be talking about women's health, because women's health is human health, and we want to talk about sustainability there. That's going to be on International Women's Day on the 8th of March. We've then got Earth Day, which is in April. We're going to be talking about investing back into the planet. And then on the 24th of May, one of my favourite subjects, how green is your data? And we're going to start talking about data centres, carbon intensity around the amount of tech that is actually being implemented now. Also, finally, we are going to be going back live this year. So we have done 2 years now of online events every single month, and what we'd like to do is bring our network to you. So any NHS trust that's interested in getting involved with sustainability partnerships, what we're doing this year is we're booking events with you in your event spaces and coming to your trust, bringing all of our great partners who create innovations, technologies, products, practices, all of those great things, setting up a full lineup for you and bringing that to your trust and setting up an actual summit in your facilities anywhere in the country. So if anyone is interested in working with us on that, please do get in touch. If anyone is interested, here's our information as well. If anyone is interested in getting in touch with any of the speakers, I know that they're able to just put their details in there now. We'll share the details as well when we share the entire event with you. And wonder if I can now stop sharing. I always have panelists share, and then when it comes to my time, I'm not as good at it. Am I still sharing my screen? Yeah. Oh, that's okay. We're just going to end the session now. Thank you for our amazing list of panelists. I really, really appreciate the time that you've given to us today. It was such a great lineup that actually it really, really deserved a little bit more time. So I can only apologise that we're not able to answer any of the questions that people had, and that we did have to rattle through some things. But as I say, we do have more specialist specific events throughout the year. So we do hope that everyone can come back for that. We do hope that we've inspired, we've sparked conversations, we've sparked relationships that you may not have known each other already. And we've done a little bit of good this morning. So thank you so much to Janet, Fanny, Andrew, Philip and Paul, always to Nathan, and thank you again so much for everyone to come and listen to us today. It was a really, really good kick-off for the year, I think.
Thanks, Georgia. Thanks, everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you.